In the dark shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read the ancient tomes. The order of the Abracast. We are the brave and the bold. The Abracast. Occult, history, conspiracy, and violence.
Alright, everybody, welcome. Everybody, I'm John Towers. This is the Abercast Wednesday Book Club. Thus Spake Zarathustra, part 17. We're just going to do a king-size Zarathustra episode, to wrap this thing up. So let's just jump right into this, shall we? Let's crack this book open. So, please go ahead and get your vessel of the art. Mix up your weapon of mass distraction. Tonight I have water in mine. And raise a toast to all my Patreon and Subscribe Star supporters. Thank you guys very much. The Convalescent. One morning, not long after his return to the cave, Zarathustra jumped up from his resting place like a madman and roared in a terrible voice and acted as if somebody else were still laying on his resting place who refused to get up. And Zarathustra's voice resounded so that his animals approached in fright. And while out of all the caves and nooks that there were near Zarathustra's cave, all animals fled, flying, fluttering, crawling, jumping, according to its kind of feet or wings that were given to them. Zarathustra, however, spoke these words: "Up, abysmal thought, out of my depth. I am your cock and dawn. Sleepy worm, up, up, my voice shall yet crow you awake and unfasten the fetters of your ears. Listen, for I want to hear you. Up, up, here is thunder enough to make even tombs learn to listen and wipe sleep and all that is pure blind out of your eyes. Listen to me, even with your eyes. My voice cures even those born blind. And once you are awake, you shall remain awake eternally. It is not my way to awaken great-grandmothers from their sleep to bid them to sleep on. You are stirring, stretching, wheezing, up, up. You shall not wheeze, but speak to me. Zarathustra, the godless, summons you. I, Zarathustra, the advocate of life, the advocate of suffering, the advocate of the circle. I summon you, my most abysmal thought, and hail to me, you are coming. I hear you, my abyss speaks, and I have turned my ultimate depth inside out into the light. And hail to me, come here, give me your hand, let's go, hoo-ah. Nausea, 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 woe unto me. No sooner had Zarathustra spoken these words than he fell down as one dead, and long remained as one dead. But when he regained his senses, he was pale and trembled and remained laying there. And for a long time, he wanted neither food nor drink. This behavior lasted 7 days, but his animals did not leave him by day or night, except that the eagle flew off to get food. And whatever prey he got together, he laid on Zarathustra's resting place. And eventually Zarathustra lay among yellow and red berries, grapes, rose apples, fragrant herbs, and pine cones. But at his feet 2 lambs lay spread out, which the eagle had with difficulty robbed from their shepherds. At last, after 7 days, Zarathustra raised himself on his resting place, took a rose apple into his hand, smelled it, and found its fragrance lovely. Then his animals thought that the time had come to speak to him. "Oh, Zarathustra," they said, "it is now 7 days that you have been lying like this with heavy eyes. Don't you at last get up on your feet again, step out of your cave? The world awaits you like a garden, and the wind is playing with heavy fragrances that want to get to you, and all the brooks would run after you. All things have been longing for you, while you have remained alone for 7 days. Step out of your cave. All things would be your physicians. Has perhaps some new knowledge come to you, bitter and hard, like a leavened dough? You have been lying, your soul rose and swelled over all its rims. "Oh, my animals," replied Zarathustra, "chatter on like this and let me listen. It's so refreshing for me to hear you chattering. There is chattering. There the world lies before me like a garden. How lovely it is that there are words and sounds. Are not words and sounds rainbows and elusive bridges between things which are eternally apart?" So I'm curious here, did Zarathustra go crazy? So he went crazy, he woke up and his fucking animals can talk to him? "To every soul there belongs another world. For every soul, every other soul is an afterworld. Precisely between what is most similar, illusion lies most beautifully. For the smallest cleft is the hardest to bridge. For me, how should there be any outside myself? There is no outside, but all sound to make us forget this. How lovely it is that we forget, and have not names and sounds been given to things that man might find things refreshing? Speaking is a beautiful folly. What that man dances over all things. How lovely is all talking, and all deception of sounds. With sounds our love dances on many-hued rainbows. Oh, Zarathustra, the animals said, to those who think as we do, all things themselves are dancing. They come back, offer their hands and laugh and flee. Then they come back. Everything goes and everything comes back. Eternally rolls the wheel of being. Everything dies and everything blossoms again. Eternally runs the year of being. Everything breaks, everything is joined anew. Eternally the same house of being is built, and everything parts and everything greets, and every other thing again. Eternally the ring of being remains faithful to itself. And every now being begins round here, rolls the sphere there, the center is everywhere, bent is the path of eternity. Oh, you buffoons and barrel organs, Zarathustra replied and smiled again. How well you know what had to be fulfilled in 7 days, and how that monster crawled down my throat and suffocated me, but I bit off its head and spewed it out. This is that dream he had with the snake. And you have already made a hurdy-gurdy song of this. But now I lie here still weary of this biting and spewing, still sick from my own redemption. And you watched all this. Oh, my animals, or even you, cruel, did you want to watch in my great pain as men do? For man is the cruelest animal. At tragedies, bullfights, and crucifixions, he has so far felt best on this earth. And when he intervened hell for himself, behold, that was his heaven on earth. When the great man screams, the small man comes a-running with his tongue hanging out of his lasciviousness, but he calls it his pity. The small man, especially the poet, how eagerly he accuses life with words. Hear him, but do not fail to hear the delight that is in all accusations. Such accusers of life overcomes with a wink. Do you love me? She says impudently. Wait a little while. Just yet I have no time for you. Man is the cruelest animal against himself, and whatever he calls himself, sinner and cross-bearer, impenitent. Do not fail to hear the voluptuous delight that is in all such lamentations and accusations. And I myself, do I thus want to be man's accuser? Alas, my animals, only this have I learned so far, that man needs what is most evil in him for what is best in him. And whatever is most evil is his best power and the hardest stone for the highest creator. And that man must become better and more evil. My torture was not knowledge that man is evil, but I cried as no one has yet cried. Alas, that his greatest evil is so very small. Alas, that his best is so very small. The great disgust with man, this choked me. This had crawled into my throat. And what the soothsayer said, all is the same, nothing is worthwhile. Knowledge chokes. A long twilight limped before me, a sadness weary to death, drunken with death, speaking with a yawning mouth, eternally recurs the man whom you are weary. The small man thus yawned my sadness and dragged its feet and could not go to sleep. Man's earth turned into a cave for me, and its chest sunken. All that is living became human mold and bones and musty past to me. My sighing sat on all human tombs and could no longer get up, and my sighing and questioning croaked and gagged and gnawed and wailed by day and night. Alas, man recurs eternally. The small man recurs eternally. Naked, I had once seen both the greatest man and the smallest man, all too familiar to each other. Even the greatest, all too human, all too small. The greatest. That was my disgust with man and the eternal reoccurrence even of the smallest. That was my disgust with all existence. Alas, nausea, nausea, nausea. Thus spoke Zarathustra, and sighed and shuddered, for he remembered his sickness. But then his animals would not let him go on. Do not speak on, O convalescent. Thus his animals answered him, but go out to where the world awaits you, like a garden. Go out to the roses and bees, the dovecots, but especially to the songbirds, that you may learn from them how to sing. For singing is for the convalescent. The healthy can speak, but when the healthy man also wants songs, he wants different songs from the convalescent. "O you buffoons and barrel organs, be silent," Zarathustra replied, and smiled at his animals. "How well you know what comfort I invented for myself in 7 days, that I must sing again. This comfort and convalescence I invented for myself. Must you immediately turn this into a hurdy-gurdy song?" "Do not speak on," this animal answered himself again. "Rather, even, O convalescent, fashion yourself a lyre first, a new lyre. For behold, Zarathustra, new lyres are needed for new songs. Sing and overflow, O Zarathustra. Cure your soul with new songs, that you may bear your great destiny, which have never yet been any man's destiny. For your animals know well, O Zarathustra, who you are and must become. Behold, you are the teacher of the eternal reoccurrence. That is your destiny. That you as the first much teach this doctrine. How could this great destiny not be your greatest danger and sickness too? Behold, we know what you teach, that all things recur eternally. And we ourselves too, and that we have already existed an eternal number of times, and all things with us. You teach that there is a great year of becoming a monster, of a great year which must, like an hourglass, turn over again and again, so that it may be run down and run out again. And all these years are alike, and what is greatest is what is smallest. And we ourselves are alike in every great year. And what is the greatest, as is what is smallest. And if you wanted to die now, O Zarathustra, behold. We also know how you would then speak to yourself. But your animals beg you not to die. You would speak without trembling, but breathing deeply with happiness. For a great weight and sultriness would be taken from you, who are most patient. Now I die and vanish, you would say, and all at once I am nothing. The soul is as mortal as the body, but the knot of causes in which I am entangled recur, and will create me again. I myself belong to the causes of the eternal recurrence. I come again in this sun, with this earth, and with this eagle, and with this serpent, not to a new life, or a better life, or a similar life. I come back eternally to this same same life. And what is greatest is what is smallest, to teach again the eternal recurrence. Of all things to speak again in the word of the Overman, great noon of earth and man, to proclaim the Overman again to men. And I spoke my word, and I break of my word, thus my eternal lot wants it. As a proclaimer I perish, the hour has now come when he who goes under should bless himself. Thus ends Zarathustra's going under. When the animals had spoken these words, they were silent and waited for Zarathustra to say something to them. But Zarathustra did not hear that. they were silent. Rather, he lay stiff with his eyes closed like one sleeping, although he was not asleep, for he was conversing with his soul. The serpent, however, and the eagle, when they found him thus silent, honored the great stillness around him and cautiously stole away. On the great longing. Oh, my soul, I taught you to say today and one day and formally, and to dance away over all, here and there and yonder. Oh, my soul, I delivered you from all nooks. I brushed dust, spiders, and twilight off you. Oh, my soul, I washed the little bashfulness and the nook virtue off of you and persuaded you to stand naked before the eyes of the sun with the storm that is called spirit. I blew over your wavy sea. I blew all your clouds away and even strangled the strangler that is called sin. Oh, my soul, I gave you the right to say no like the storm and to say yes like the clear sky says yes. And you are still as light whether you stand or you walk through storms of negation. Oh, my soul, I gave you back the freedom over the created and the uncreated. And who knows, as you know, the voluptuous delight of what is yet to come. And oh, my soul, I taught you the contempt that does not come like the worm's gnawing, the great and loving contempt that loves most where it despises most. Oh, my soul, I taught you to persuade so well that you persuade the very ground, like the sun, who persuades even the sea to his own height. Oh, my soul, I took from you all obeying, knee bending, and Lord saying. I myself gave you the name cessation of need and destiny. Oh, my soul, I gave you new names and colorful toys, and I called you destiny and circumference of circumferences and umbilical cord of time and the azure bell. Oh, my soul, I gave your soil all wisdom to drink and all new wines, and also all that immemorably strong old wines of wisdom. Oh, my soul, I poured every sun out on you in every night, in every silence, in every longing. Then you grew up like a vine. Oh, my soul, overrich and heavy, you now stand there like a vine, swelling udders and crowned brow, golden grapes, crowded and pressed by your happiness, waiting in your superabundance and still bashful about waiting. And oh, my soul, there is not a soul anywhere that would be more loving and comprehending and comprehensive. Where would the future and the past dwell closer together than in you? No, my soul, I gave you all, and I have emptied all my hands to you. And now you say to me, smiling and still full of melancholy, which of us has to be thankful? Should not be the giver be thankful that the receiver has received, and not giving in need is not receiving mercy? Oh, my soul, I understand the smile of your melancholy. Now your own overrichness stretches out longing hands, your fulfillness gazes over roaring seas and seeks and waits, and the longing of overfullness gazes out of the smiling skies of your eyes. And verily, O my soul, who could see your smile and not be melted by tears? My angels themselves are melted by tears because of the over-graciousness of your smile. Your graciousness and over-graciousness do not want to lament and weep. And yet, oh my soul, your smile longs for tears and trembling mouth for sobs. Is not all weeping and lamentation, and all lamentation and accusation. Thus you speak to yourself, and therefore, my soul, you would sooner smile than pour out your suffering, pour out into plunging tears of all your suffering over your fullness and over the vine's urge for the vinegar and his knife. But if you will not weep out your crimson melancholy, then you will have to sing, "O my soul, behold, I myself smile as I say this before you. Sing with a roaring song till all seas are silenced, and they may listen to your longing till over silent longing seas the bark floats, the golden wonder around whose gold all good, bad, wondrous things leap. Also many great and small animals, and whatever has light, wondrous feet for running on paths blue as violets towards the golden wonder, the voluntary bark and its master, and that is the vinegar who is waiting with his diamond knife. Your great deliverer, O my soul, the nameless one for whom only the future songs will find names, and verily even now your breath is fragrant with future songs, and even now you are glowing and dreaming and drinking thirstily from all deep and resounding wells of comfort. Even now your melancholy is resting in the happiness of future songs. O my soul, now I have given you all, and even the last I had, and I have emptied all my hands to you, that I bade you sing. Behold, what was the last I had that I bade you to sing? Speak now, speak which of us has to be thankful now. Better yet, however, sing to me, O my soul, and let me be thankful. And thus spoke Zarathustra. The other dancing song. Into your eyes I looked recently, O life, and I saw gold blinking in your night eye. My heart stopped in delight. A golden boat that I saw blinking on nocturnal waters, a golden rocking boat sinking, drinking, and winking again. At my foot, frantic to dance, you cast a glance. A laughing, questioning, melting, rocking glance twice. Only you stirred your rattle with your small hands, and my foot was already rocking with a dancing frenzy. My heel twitched, then my toes hearkened to understand you, and rose for the dancer has his ear in his toes. And I leaped toward you, but you fled back from my leap. And the tongue of your fleeing, flying hair licked me in its sweep. Away from you I leaped, and from your serpent's ire, and you stood there, half turned your eyes full of desire. With crooked glances you teach me crooked ways, and crooked ways my foot learns treachery. I fear you near, I love you far, your flight lures me, your seeking cures me. I suffer, but what would I not gladly suffer for you? You whose coldness fires, whose hatred seduces, whose flight binds and scorn inspires. Who would not hate you? You great binder and twiner, temptress, seeker and finder. Who would not love you, your innocent, impatient, wind-swift, child-eyed sinner? Where to are you luring me now, for never tame extreme? Now you are fleeing from me again, you sweet wild cat and ingrate. I dance after you. I follow wherever your traces linger. Where are you? And give me your hand, or only one finger. Hey, here are caves and thickets. We shall get lost. Stop, stand still. Don't you see the owls and the bats whirling past? You owl, you bat, intent to confound. Where are we? Such howling and yelping you have learned from the hound. Your lovely little white teeth are gnashing at me. Out of a curly little mane, your evil eyes flash at me. That is a dance up high and down low. I am the hunter. Would you be my dog or my doe? Alongside me now in swift, you malicious leaping bell. Now up and over there, alas, as I leaped I fell. Oh, see me lying there, you prankster suing for grace. I should like to walk with you in a lovelier place. Love's paths through silent bushes, past many-hued plants. Or there along the lake, there goldfish swim and dance. Are you weary now? Over there are sunsets and sheep. When shepherds play on their flutes, is it not lovely to sleep? You are so terribly weary. I'll carry you there. Just let your arms sink. And if you are thirsty, I have got something, but your mouth does not want to drink. Open this damned nimble, supple snake and slippery witch. Where are you? In my face 2 red blotches from your hand itch. I'm verily weary of always being your sheepish shepherd, you witch. If I have so far sung to you now, you shall cry. Keep time with my whip, and you shall dance and cry. Or have I forgotten the whip? Not I. Then life answered me thus, covering up her delicate ears. O Zarathustra, don't crack your whip so frightfully after all. You know that noise murders thought, and just now such tender thoughts are coming to me. We are both 2 real good-for-nothings and evil-for-nothings. Beyond good and evil we found our island and our green meadow, we 2 alone. Therefore we had better like each other. Even if we do not love each other from the heart, need we bear each other a grudge? If we do not love each other from the heart, that I like you often too well, that you know. And the reason is that I'm jealous of your wisdom. Oh, this mad old fool of a wisdom. If your wisdom ever ran away from you, then my love would quickly run away from you too. Then life looked back and around thoughtfully and said softly, O Zarathustra, you are not faithful enough to me. You do not love me nearly as much as you say. I know you are thinking of leaving me soon. There is an old, heavy, heavy growl bell that growls at night all the way up to your cave. When you hear this bell strike the hour of midnight, then you think between 1 and 12, you think, oh, Zarathustra, I know it, of how you want to leave me soon. Yes, I answered hesitantly. But you also know, and I whispered something into her ear, right through her tangled, yellow, foolish tresses. You know that, O Zarathustra, nobody knows that. And we looked at each other and gazed on the green meadow over which the cool evening was running just then, and we wept together. But in a life was dearer to me than all my wisdom was ever. Thus spoke Zarathustra. 1. Oh, man, take care. 2. What does the deep midnight declare? 3. I was asleep. 4. From a dream I awoke and swear. 5. The world is deep. 6. Deeper than day had been aware. 7. Deep in its woe. 8. Joy deeper yet than agony. 9. Woe implores go. 10. But all joy wants eternity. 11. Wants deep eternity. 12. All right, got one more, and then we're going to wrap it up for this evening. The 7 Seals, or the Yes and the Amen song. If I am a soothsayer and full of that soothsaying spirit, which wanders on high ridge between 2 seas, I wander like a heavy cloud between past and future, the enemy of all sultry plains. And all that is weary and can neither die nor live in its dark bosom, preparing for lightning and the redemptive flash, pregnant with lightning bolts that say yes and laugh, yes, soothsaying lightning bolts. Blessed is he who is thus pregnant, and verily long must he hang on to the mountains like a dark cloud. Who shall one day kindle the light of the future? Oh, how should I not lust after eternity and after the nuptial ring of rings, the ring of recurrence? Never yet have I found this woman from whom I wanted children, unless it be this woman whom I love. And I love you, O eternity, for I love you, O eternity. If ever my wrath burst tombs, moved boundary stones, and rolled old tablets broken into steep deaths, if ever my mockery blew moldy words to the wind, and I came as a broom to the cross-marked spiders, and as a sweeping gust of old musty tomb chambers, if ever I sat jubilating where old gods lie buried, world-blessing, world-loving, besides the monuments of old world slanders, for I love even churches and tombs of gods. Once the sky gazes through their broken roofs with pure eyes, and like grass and red poppies, I love to sit on broken churches. Oh, how should I not lust after eternity and after the nuptial ring of rings, the ring of recurrence? Never yet have I found the woman from whom I wanted children, unless it be this woman who I love. For I love you, O eternity, for I love you, O eternity. If ever one breath came to me of the creative breath, and out of the heavenly need that constrains even accidents to dance star dances, if I ever laughed the laughter of creative lightning, which is followed obediently but grumblingly by the long thunder of the deed, if I ever played dice with gods at God's table, the earth, till the earth quaked and burst and snorted up floods of fire, for the earth is a table for gods and trembles with creative new words, and gods throw. Oh, how should I not lust after eternity and after the nuptial ring of rings, the ring of recurrence? Yet I have never found the woman for whom I love and wanted children, unless it be the woman who I love. For I love you, O eternity, for I love you, O eternity. If I ever drank full draughts from the foaming, spicened blend mug, in which all things are well blended, if my hand ever poured the farthest to the nearest, and fire to spirit and joy to pain, to the most wicked to the most gracious, if I myself am a grain, of that redeeming salt which makes all things blend well in the blend mug. For there is salt that unites good and evil, and even the greatest evil is worthy of being used as spice for the last foaming over. Oh, how should I not lust after eternity, and after the nuptial ring of rings, the ring of recurrence? Never have I found the woman from whom I wanted children, unless it be this woman that I love, for I love you, O eternity, for I love you, O eternity. If I am fond of the sea, and of all that is of the sea's kind, the fondest when it angrily contradicts me, if that delight in searching which drives the sails towards me undiscovered is in me, the seafarer's delight is my delight. If ever my jubilation cried, the coast has vanished. Now the last chain has fallen from me, the boundless roars around me, far out glistens space and time. Be of good cheer, old heart. Oh, how should I not lust after eternity, and after the nuptial ring of rings, the ring of recurrence? Ever yet have I found the woman from whom I wanted children, unless it be this woman whom I love. For I love you, O eternity, for I love you, O eternity. If my virtue is a dancer's virtue, and I have often jumped with both feet into the gold and emerald delight, if my sarcasm is a laughing sarcasm, at home under rose slopes and hedges of lilies, for in all laughter all that is evil comes together, but is pronounced holy and absolved by its own bliss. And if this is my Alpha and Omega, that all that is heavy and grave should become light, all that is body, dancer, all that is spirit, bird, and verily, that is my Alpha and Omega. Oh, how should I not lust after eternity, and after the nuptial ring of rings, the ring of recurrence? Never yet have I found the woman for whom I wanted children, unless it be this woman that I love, for I love you, O eternity, for I love you, O eternity. If ever I spread tranquil skies over myself and soared on my own wings into my own skies, if I swam playfully in the deep light distance, and the bird wisdom of my freedom came, but bird wisdom speaks thus: behold, there is no above, no below. Throw yourself around out back, who you are. Light, sing, speak no more. Are not all words made for the grave and the heavy? Not all words lies to those who are light? Sing, speak no more. Oh, how should I not lust after my eternity, and after the nuptial ring of rings, the ring of recurrence? Never have I yet found the woman from whom I wanted children, unless it be this woman who I love. For I love you, O eternity, for I love you, O eternity. And with that, we're going to switch over to the last and the fourth and last final part of Zarathustra.
Learn more at abracast.com. Get bonus content and access to the private Abracast workgroup by signing up for the mailing list. Get all that plus many exclusive episodes by supporting the show at patreon.com or subscribestar.com.
funny how much different water, the ice sounds in water than in Jin Jihad. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm suffering auditory hallucinations. I'm 25 hours into a 72-hour fast. I thought I'd come down and do some reading. So this is the beginning of Zarathustra Part 4, the final part. The honey sacrifice. And again, months and years passed over Zarathustra's soul, and he did not heed them. But his hair turned white one day when he sat on a stone before his cave and looked out, and one looks on the sea from there across winding abysses. His animals walked about him thoughtfully, and at last stood still before him. "O Zarathustra," they said, "are you perhaps looking out for your happiness?" "What matters happiness?" he replies. "I have long ceased to be concerned with happiness. I am concerned with my work." "O Zarathustra," the animals spoke again, "you say that as one having overmuch of the good, do you not lie in a sky-blue lake of happiness?" "You buffoons," Zarathustra replied and smiled. "How well you chose your metaphor. But you also know that my happiness is heavy and not like a flowing wave of water. It presses me and will not leave me and acts like melted tar." Again, the animals walked about him thoughtfully and then stood before him and said, "O Zarathustra, is that why you yourself are becoming even yellower and darker? Although your hair wants to look white and flaxen, you are in a dreadful mess." "What are you saying there, my animal?" Zarathustra said and laughed. "Verily, I was abusive when I spoke of tar. But what is happening to me happens to every fruit when it grows ripe. It is the honey in my veins that makes my blood thicker and my soul calmer." "That is what it will be, Zarathustra," the animals answered and nestled against him. But do you not want to climb a high mountain today? The air is clear and one sees more of the world today than ever before." "Yes, my animals," he replied. "Your advice is excellent and quite after my own heart. I want to climb a high mountain today. But see to it that honey will be at hand there, yellow, white, good, ice, fresh, golden comb honey. For you should know that up there I want to offer the honey sacrifice." But when Zarathustra had reached the height, he sent back the animals who had accompanied him, and he found himself alone, and he laughed heartily and looked around and spoke thus: "That I spoke of sacrifices of honey, sacrifices were mere cunning, and verily a useful folly. Up here I may speak more freely than before hermits' caves and hermits' domestic animals. Why sacrifice? I squander what is given to me. I, a squanderer with 1,000 hands, how could I call that sacrificing? And when I desired honey, I merely desired bait and sweet mucus and mucilage, which make even growling bears and queer, sullen, evil birds put out their tongue, the best bait needed by hunters and fishermen." That's in a Tool song. It's almost like I'm swimming. It seems like I've been here before. It seems so familiar. Hold on. All right, I'm going to hold off on Nietzsche for a second And I just had a profound realization. Tool has out one of their, if it's not their first, it's one of their first. I believe it was their first. I believe it was right before Undertow. And they had a song called Sweat. And as I was humming it here to myself, I realized that it's about eternal recurrence, which is what we're talking about, right? So it's the reason for this whole series on the podcast. So I just dug up the lyrics real fast, and let me see. I'm sweating and breathing and staring and thinking, sinking deeper, and it's almost like I'm swimming and the sun is burning hot again. I'm the hunter and the fisherman, and I'm trying to remember when, but it makes me dizzy. Here we go. It seems like I've been here before. It seems so familiar. It seems like I'm slipping into a dream within a dream. It's the way you whisper. The sun is setting cool again. I'm the thinker and a fisherman, and I'm trying to remember when, but it makes me dizzy. And I'm sweating and breathing and staring and thinking, sinking deeper, and it's almost like I'm swimming. I don't know if I should go on. I know that I don't have a good singing voice. It seems like I've been here before. It seems so familiar. It seems like I'm slipping into a dream within a dream. It's the way you whisper. It drags me under and it takes me home. I mean, there's a lot of Nietzsche references there. All right, sorry for that detour into Nerdville. Okay, so back to Nietzsche. The best bait needed by hunters and fishermen. For it, the world is like a dark jungle and a garden of delight for all wild hunters. It strikes me even more, so I prefer to think of it as an abysmal rich sea, a sea full of colorful fish and crabs, which even gods might covet. That for their sakes or would wish to become fishermen and net throwers. So rich is the world in queer things, great and small, especially the human world, the human sea, that is where I now cast my golden fishing rod and say, open up, you human abyss. Open up and cast up to me your fish and glittering crabs. With my best bait I shall today bait the queerest human fish. My happiness itself I cast out far and wide between sunrise and noon and sunset, to see if many human fish might not learn to wriggle and wiggle from my happiness, until biting at my sharp hidden hooks they must come up to my height. The most colorful abysmal groundlings to the most sarcastic of all who fish for men, for that is what I am through and through, reeling and reeling in, raising up, raising a razor cultivator, a disciplinarian who once counseled himself, not for nothing, become who you are. Thus men may now come up to me, for I am still waiting for the sign that the time has come for my descent, sinking deeper. I must still not myself go under, as I must do under the eyes of men. That is why I wait here, cunning and mocking on high mountains, neither impatient nor patient, rather as one who has forgotten patience too, because his passion is over, for my destiny leaves me time. Perhaps it has forgotten me, or does it sit in the shade behind a big stone catching flies? And verily I like it for this, my eternal destiny. It does not hurry and press me, and it leaves me time for jests and for sarcasm, so that I could climb this high mountain today to catch fish. Has man ever caught fish on high mountains? And even though what I want to do up here be folly. It is still better than if I become solemn down there from waiting, and green and yellow, a swaggering wrath snorter from waiting, a holy howling storm out of the mountains, an impatient one who shouts down into the valleys, listen, or I shall whip you with the scourge of God. Not that I bear such angry men a grudge, but are good enough for my laughter. They must surely be impatient. These big, noisy drums which find their chance to speak today or never. I, however, in my destiny, we do not speak to the today, nor do we speak to the never. We have patience and time, and overmuch time in which to speak. So one day it must yet come and may not pass. What must come one day and may not pass? Our great Hazar, that is our great distant human kingdom, and Zarathustra, kingdom of 1,000 years. How distant may be this distant be? What is that to me? What is that to me? But for all that, this is no less certain. With both feet I stand firmly on this ground, this eternal ground, on hard primeval rock, on this highest, hardest primeval mountain range, to which all winds come as to the weathershed, and ask where and whence and whither. Laugh, laugh, my bright, wholesome sarcasm, from high mountains cast down your glittering, mocking laughter. With your glittering bait me with the most beautiful human fish, and whenever in all the seas belong to me. My, and for me, in all things that fish out for me, that bring up to me, for that I, the most sarcastic of all fishermen, am waiting. Out, out, my fishing rod, down, down, bait of my happiness, drip your sweetest dew, honey, on my heart. Bite my fishing rod into the belly of all black melancholy. Out there, my eye, how many seas surround me, and what dawning human futures, and over me what rose red stillness, what unclouded silence. The cry of distress. The next day Zarathustra again sat on his stone before his cave, and while the animals were roaming through the outside world to find new nourishment, also new honey, for Zarathustra had spent and squandered the old honey down to the last drop. But as he was sitting there, a stick in his hand, tracing his shadow on the ground, thinking, and verily not about himself and his shadow, but he was suddenly frightened. And he started, for beside his own shadow he saw another shadow, and he looked around quickly and got up, and beheld the soothsayer stood beside him, and the same he had once feted at his table, the proclaimer of the great weariness who taught, all is the same and nothing is worthwhile. The world is without meaning, knowledge strangles, but his face had changed meanwhile. And when Zarathustra looked into his eyes, his heart was frightened again. So many ill tidings and ashen lightning bolts ran down his face. The soothsayer, who had noticed what went on in Zarathustra's soul, wiped his hand over his face, as if he wanted to wipe it away, and Zarathustra did likewise, and when both had thus silently composed and strengthened themselves, they shook hands as a sign that they wanted to recognize each other. "Welcome," said Zarathustra, "you soothsayer of the great weariness. Not for nothing were you once my guest. Eat and drink with me again today, and forgive a cheerful old man for sitting at the table with you." A cheerful old man, the soothsayer replied, shaking his head. But whatever you may be or want to be, Zarathustra, you shall not be up here much longer. Soon your bark shall not be stranded any more. But am I stranded? Zarathustra asked, laughing. The waves around your mountain, replied the soothsayer, are climbing and climbing, and the waves of the great distress and melancholy. Soon they will lift up your bark too and carry you off. Zarathustra fell silent. At that, and was surprised. Do you not hear anything yet? Continued the soothsayer. Does it not rush and roar up from the depths? Zarathustra remained silent and listened, and all he heard was a long, long cry which the abysses threw to each other and handed on, for none wanted to keep it, so evil did it sound. You proclaimer of ill tidings, Zarathustra said finally, this is a cry of distress, and the cry of a man. It might as well come out of the Black Sea. But what is human distress to me? My final sin? Which has it been saved up for me? Do you know what it is? It's pity, answered the soothsayer, from an overflowing heart, and he raised both hands. O Zarathustra, I have come to seduce you to your final sin. And no sooner had these words been spoken than the cry resounded again, and longer and more anxious than before, also much closer now. Do you hear, O Zarathustra? The soothsayer shouted. The cry is for you, and it calls you. Come, come, come. It is time, it is high time. And then Zarathustra remained silent, confused, and shaken. But at last, as one hesitant in his own mind, he asked, Who is it that calls me? But you know that, replied the soothsayer violently. Why do you conceal yourself? It is the higher man that cries for you. The higher man? Zarathustra cried, seized with horror. What does he want? What does he want? The higher man, what does he want here? And his skin was covered with perspiration. The soothsayer, however, made no reply to Zarathustra's dread, but he listened and listened towards the depth. But when there was silence for a long time, he turned his glance back, and he saw Zarathustra standing there trembling. "O Zarathustra," he began in a sad tone of voice, "you are not standing there as one made giddy by his happiness. You had better dance, lest ye fall. But even if you would dance before me, leaping all your side leaps, no one could say to me, 'Behold, here dances the last gay man.' Anybody coming to this height looking for that man would come in vain. Caves he would find, and caves behind caves, and hiding places for those addicted to hiding, but no mines of happiness or treasure, rooms or new gold veins of happiness. Happiness. How should one find happiness among hermits and those buried like this? Must I still speak of the last happiness on Blessed Isle? The far away between forgotten seas, but all is the same. Nothing is worthwhile, no seeking avails. Nor are there any blessed isles anymore." Thus sighed the soothsayer. At his last sigh, however, Zarathustra grew bright and sure again, like one emerging into the light out of a great deep gorge. "No, no, 3 times no," he shouted with a strong voice, and he stroked his beard. "That I know better, There still are blessed isles. Be quiet about that, you sighing bag of sadness. Stop splashing about that, you rain cloud in the morning. Do I not stand here, even now, wet from your melancholy like a drenched dog? Now I shake myself and run away from you to dry again. You must not be surprised at that. Do I strike you as discourteous? But this is my court. As for your higher man, well, then I shall look for him once in those woods. Thence came his cry. Perhaps an evil beast troubles him there. He is in my realm. There he shall not come to grief, and verily there are many evil beasts around me. With these words, Zarathustra turned to leave, and the soothsayer said, O Zarathustra, you are a rogue, and I know it. You want to get rid of me. You would sooner run into the woods and look for evil beasts, but what will it avail you? In the evening, you will have me back anyways. In your own cave, I shall be sitting, patient and heavy as a block, waiting for you. So be it, Zarathustra shouted back as he was walking away, and whatever is mine in my cave belongs to you too, my guest. And if you should find honey in there, well then lick it up, you growling bear, and sweeten your soul. For in the evening we should both be cheerful and gay, that this day has come to an end, and that you yourself shall dance to my songs as my dancing bear. You do not believe it? You shake your head. Well then, you old bear. But I too am a soothsayer. Thus spoke Zarathustra. Conversation with the kings. Whoa, big fellow. Zarathustra had not yet walked an hour in his mountains in the woods when he suddenly saw a strange procession. On the very path he wanted to follow down, two kings were approaching, adorned with crowns and crimson belts and colorful as flamingos. As they were driving a laden ass before them. What do these kings want in my realm? Zarathustra said in his heart, surprised, and quickly he hid behind a bush. But when the kings came close, he said half aloud, as if talking to himself, strange, how does it fit together? Two kings I see, and only one ass. The two kings stopped, smiled, and looked in the direction from which the voice had come, and then looked at each other. Something of the sort may have occurred to one of us, too, said the king to the right, but one does not say it. The king at the left, however, shrugged his shoulders and replied, it may well be a goat herd, or a hermit who has lived too long among these rocks and trees, for no society at all also spoils good manners. Good manners, the other king retorted angrily and bitterly. Then what is it that we are trying to get away from if it's not good manners, a good society? It is indeed better to live among hermits and goat herders than among our gilded, false, painted mob, even if they call themselves good society, even if they call themselves nobility. They are false and foul through and through, beginning with the blood, thanks to bad old diseases and worse quacks. Best and dearest to me today is the healthy peasant, coarse, cunning, stubborn, enduring. That is the noblest species today. The peasant is the best type today, and the peasant type should be master. But it is the realm of the mob. I shall not be deceived any more. Mob, however, means hodgepodge. It's a mob hodgepodge. There anything is mixed up in every way, saint and scamp and junker and Jew and every kind of beast out of Noah's Ark, good manners. Everything among us is false and foul, and nobody knows how to revere any longer. We are trying to get away from precisely that. They are saccharine, obtrusive curs. They gild palm leaves. This nausea suffocates me. We kings ourselves have become false, overhung and disguised with ancient yellowed grandfathers, pomp showpieces for the most stupid and clever, and anyone who haggles for power today. We are not the first, and yet must represent them. It is this deception that has come to disgust and nauseate us. We have tried to get away from the rabble, all these scream throats and scribbling blue bottles and shopkeeper stench and the ambitious wriggling, the foul breath, pew of living among the rabble, pew for representing the first among the rabble. Nausea, nausea, what do we kings matter now? Your old illness is upon you, the king at the left said at this point. Nausea is seizing you, my poor brother. But you know that somebody is listening to us. Immediately Zarathustra, who had opened his ears and his eyes wide at this talk, rose from his hiding place, and he walked towards the kings and began. He who is listening to you, he who likes to listen to you, O kings, is called Zarathustra. I am Zarathustra, who once said, what do kings matter now? Forgive me. I was delighted when you had said to each other, what do we kings matter now? Here, however, is my realm and my dominion, and might you be seeking in my realm. But perhaps you have found your way, what I am looking for, the higher man. And then the kings heard this, and they beat their breasts and said as with one voice, you have been found out, and with the sword of this word you cut through our hearts. Thickest darkness you have discovered our distress, for behold, we are on our way to find the higher man, the man who is higher than we. Although we are kings to him, we are leading this ass, for the highest man shall also be the highest lord on earth. Man's fate knows no harsher misfortune than when does those who have power on earth are not also the first men. That makes everything false and crooked and monstrous. And when they are even the last and more beast than man, then the price of the mob rises, and eventually the virtue of the mob even says, behold, I alone am virtue. What did I just hear? Replies Zarathustra. What wisdom in these kings! I am delighted and verily even feel the desire to make a rhyme on this. Zarathustra's like, hold on, let me bust out some freestyle, which is not fit for everybody's ears. I have long become unaccustomed to any consideration for long ears. Well then, but at this point it happened that the ass too got in a word and said clearly with evil intent, Eeyaw! Once in the year of grace number 1, I think the Sibyl said, drunken without any drink, now everything goes wrong, oh woe. Decay, the world has never been sunk so low. Rome sank with whoredom and became a stew, and the Caesars became beasts and God a Jew. These rhymes of Zarathustra delighted the kings, but the king at the right said, O Zarathustra, how well we did to go forth to see you, for your enemies showed us your image in their mirror. There you had the mocking grimace of a devil, so that we were afraid of you. But what could we do? Again and again you pierced our hearts and our ears with your maxims, so we said at last, what difference does it make how he looks? We must hear him who teaches. You shall love peace as a means to new wars. In this, the short peace more than the long. Nobody ever spoke such warlike words, and what is good? To be brave is good, and what is good war that hollows any cause? Zarathustra, the blood of our fathers stirred in our bodies at such words. It was like the speech of the spring in the old wine barrels, when the swords ran wild like snakes with red spots. Our fathers grew fond of life. The sun of all peace struck them as languid and lukewarm, and in any long peace caused shame for our fathers' side when they saw flashing dried up swords on the walls. Like them, they thirsted for war, for a sword wants to drink blood and glistens with desire. When the kings talked thus and chatted eagerly of the happiness of their fathers, Zarathustra was overcome with no small temptation to mock their eagerness, for obviously they were very peaceful kings with old and fine faces, but he restrained himself. Well, he said, that is where the path leads. There lies Zarathustra's cave, and this day shall yet have a long evening. Now, however, a cry of distress calls me away from you urgently. My cave is honored if kings want to sit in it and wait. Only you will have to wait long. But what does it matter? Where does one now learn better how to wait than at court? And all the virtue left to kings today, is it not called being able to wait? And thus spake Zarathustra. The Leech. Thoughtfully, Zarathustra went farther and deeper through the woods and past swampy valleys, but as happens to everyone who reflects on grave matters, he stepped on a man unwittingly. And behold, all at once a cry of pain and 2 curses and 20 bad insults splashed into his face and startled him so that he raised his stick and beat the man on whom he had stepped. A moment later, however, he recovered his senses, and his heart laughed at the folly that he had just committed. Forgive me, he said to the man. And then he had stepped on, who had angrily risen and sat down. Forgive me, and above all, listen to a parable first. As a wanderer who dreams of distant matters will unwittingly stumble over a sleeping dog on a lonely road, a dog lying in the sun at both the start, and let fly at each other like mortal enemies, because both are mortally frightened. Thus it happened to us. And yet, how little was lacking. And when might have caressed each other, this dog and this lonely man, for after all they were both lonely. Whoever you may be, said the man he had stepped on, still angry, your parable too offends me. And not only your foot, after all, am I a dog? And at that, the seated man got up and pulled his bare arm out of the swamp. For at first he had been lying stretched out on the ground, concealed and unrecognizable as one lying in wait for some swamp animal. But what are you doing? Cried Zarathustra, startled, for he saw that much blood was flowing down the bare arm. And what happened to you? Did a bad animal bite you, you poor fucking wretch? This bleeding man laughed, still angry, and he said, what is that to you? He said, I wanted to go on. Here I am at home in my realm. Let whoever wants to ask me, but I certainly won't answer a bumpkin. You are wrong, Zarathustra said, full of pity, and he held him back. You are wrong. This is not your realm, but mine, and here nobody shall come to grief. Call me whatever you like. I am who I must be, and I call myself Zarathustra. Well, up there runs the path to Zarathustra's cave, which is not far. Do you not want to go and look after your wound in my place? Things have gone badly for you in this life, you poor wretch. First the beast bit you, and then a man steps on you. When the man who had been stepped on heard Zarathustra's name, he changed completely. What has happened to me? He cried out. Who else matters to me anymore in this life but this one man, Zarathustra? And that one beast which lives on blood, the Leech. For the Leech's sake, I lay here beside this swamp like a fisherman, and my arm, which had cast and already been bitten 10 times, but a still more beautiful Leech bit, seeking my blood, Zarathustra himself. O happiness, O miracle, praised be this day that lured me to this swamp. Praised be the best and most alive cupper living today, and praised be the great Leech of conscious Zarathustra. Thus spoke the man who had been stepped on, and Zarathustra enjoyed his words in their fine, respectful manner. Who are you? He asked, and offered him his hand. There is much between us that remains to be cleared up and cheered up. But even now, it seems to me the day draws pure and bright. I am the contentious in spirit, replied the man. And in matters of the spirit here, there may well be none stricter, narrower, and harder than I, except he from whom I have learned it, Zarathustra himself. Rather not knowing than half know much, rather be a fool to one's own than a sage according to the opinion of others. I go to ground. What does it matter whether I be great or small, whether it be called a swamp or a sky? A hand's breadth of ground suffocates me, provide it is really ground and foundation. A hand's breadth of the ground on that one can stand. In the conscience of science, there is nothing great and nothing small. Then perhaps you are the man who knows the Leech, Zarathustra asked. And do you pursue this Leech to its ultimate ground, my conscientious friend? Oh, Zarathustra, replied the man who had been stepped on, that wouldn't be an immensity. How could I presume so much, that of which I am the master and the expert of the brain of the Leech. This is my world, and it really is a world too. Forgive me that here my pride speaks up, for I have no equal here. That is why I said here is my home. How long have I been pursuing this one thing, the brain of the Leech, lest the slippery truth slip away from me here again? Here is my realm. For its sake, I have thrown everything else away. For its sake, everything else has become indifferent to me, and close to my knowledge lies my black ignorance. The conscience of the spirit demands of me that I know one thing and nothing else. I loathe all the half in spirit, and all the vaporous that hover and rave. Where my honesty ceases, I am blind, and I also want to be blind. But where I want to know, I also want to be honest. That is hard, strict, narrow, cruel, and inexorable. That you, O Zarathustra, had once said, spirit is the life that itself cuts into life, that introduced and seduced me to your doctrine, and verily, with my own blood I increased my own knowledge. Well, that is quite apparent, Zarathustra interrupted, for the blood still flowed down the bare arm of the conscientious man, 10 leeches having bitten deep into it. Oh, you strange fellow, how much I learn from what is apparent here, namely from you. And perhaps I had better not pour all of it into your strict ears. Well, here we part, but I should like to find you again. Up there goes the path to my cave. Tonight you shall be my dear guest there. to your body too. I should like to make up for Zarathustra's having stepped on you with his feet. I shall reflect on that now. However, a cry of distress urgently calls me away from you, and thus spake Zarathustra. All right, see you in like 24 hours, I guess. We'll see how we'll see how I'm doing that.
Learn more at abracast.com. Get bonus content and access to the private Abracast workgroup by signing up for the mailing list. Get all that plus many exclusive episodes by supporting the show at patreon.com or subscribestar.com.
I'm just, hey, oh, is this thing on? Hello. I'm just over 48 hours in to my 72-hour fast. So I thought I'd come on in and read for a little bit, chew up some of this time that I have. Let's see, where are we at? The Magician. But when Zarathustra came around a rock, he beheld not far below on the same path a man who threw his limbs around like a maniac had finally flopped down on his belly. Wait, Zarathustra said to his heart. That must indeed be the higher man. From him came that terrible cry of distress. Let me see if he can still be helped. But when he ran to the spot where the man lay on the ground, he just found a trembling old man with vacant eyes. And however Zarathustra exerted himself to help the man to get up to his feet again, he was all in vain, nor did the unfortunate man seem to notice that anyone was with him. Rather, he kept looking around with piteous gestures, like one abandoned and forsaken by all the world at last. However, after many shudders and convulsions and contortions, he began to moan thus: "Who warms me, who loves me still? Give hot hands, give a heart as glowing coals, and stretched out, shuddering like something half dead, whose feet one warms, shaken, alas, by unknown fevers, shivering with piercing, icy frost arrows. Hunt by thee, O thought unnameable, shrouded, terrible one, thou hunter behind the clouds, struck down by thy lightning bolt, thou mocking eye that stares at me from the dark. Thus I lie writhing, twisting, tormenting, with all eternal tortures, hit by three cruelest hunter. Thou unknown God, hit deeper, hit once more yet. Drive a stake through and break this heart. Why this torture with a blunt-toothed arrow? Why dost thou stare again? Not yet weary of human agony, with God's lightning eyes that delight in suffering. Thou wouldest not kill, only torture, torture. Why torture me, delighted by suffering, thou unknown God? Ha ha! Thou art crawling close in such midnight. What dost thou want? Speak. Thou art crowding, pressing me. Ha! Far too close. Away, away. Thou art listening to me breathe. Thou art listening to my heart. Thou jealous one, jealous of what? Away, away, why the ladder? Wouldest thou enter the heart, climb in deep into my most secret thoughts? Shameless one, unknown thief, what wouldest thou steal? What wouldest thou gain by listening? What thouest thou gain by torture, thou torturer, thou hangman, God? Or should I, dog-like, roll before thee, devoted, frantic, or besides myself, wag love to thee? In vain pierce on, cruelest thorn. No, no dog, only thy game am I, you cruelest hunter, the proudest prisoner. Thou robber behind clouds, speak at last. What wouldest thou, waylayer from me? Thou lightning shrouded one, unknown one, speak. What wilt thou, unknown God? What ransom? Why wilt thou ransom? Demand much, thus my pride advises, and make thy speech short, that my other pride advises. Ha ha! Me, thou wilt have me? Me entirely? Ha ha! And art torturing me, fool, that thou art torturing my pride? Give love to me who warms me still, who loves me still. Give hot hands, give a heart as glowing coals, and give me the loneliest, whom ice, alas, sevenfold ice teaches to languish for enemies, even for enemies. Give, yes, give, holy, cruelest enemy, give me thyself. Away he himself fled, my last, only companion, my great enemy, my unknown, my hangman God. No, do not come back with all my tortures, not the last of all that are lonely. Oh, come back. All my tear streams run their course to thee, and my heart's final flame flares up for thee. Oh, come back, my unknown God, my pain, my last happiness. At this point, however, the Zarathustra could not restrain himself any longer, and he raised his stick and started to beat the moaning man with all his might. Stop it! He shouted furiously. Stop it, you actor, you counterfeiter, you liar from the bottom. I recognize you well. I'll warm your legs for you, you wicked magician. I know well how to make things hot for such as you. Leave off, the old man said, and leaped up from the ground. Don't strike me any more, Zarathustra. I did all this only as a game. Such things belong to my art. It was you that I wanted to try when I treated you to this tryout, and verily you have seen through me very well. But you, too, have given me no small sample of yourself to try out, and you are hard. Hey now, wise Zarathustra. Hard do you hit with your truths. Your stick forces is truth out of me. Don't flatter, replied Zarathustra, still excited and angry. You actor from the bottom. You are false. Why do you talk of truths? You peacock of peacocks, you sea of vanity. What were you playing before me, you wicked magician? In whom was I to believe when you were moaning in this way? The aesthetic of the spirit, said the old man. I played him. You yourself once coined this word. The poetic and the magician who at last turns the spirit against himself, and changed man who freezes to death from his evil science and conscience. And you may as well confess it. It took a long time, O Zarathustra, before you saw through my art and lie. You believed in my distress when you held my head with both your hands, and I heard you moan, he has been loved too little, loved too little. that I deceived you to that extent made my malice jubilate inside of me. You may have deceived people subtler than I, Zarathustra said harshly. I do not guard against deceivers. I have to be without caution. Thus my lot wants it. You, however, have to deceive. That far I know. You always have been equivocal, quadri, oh boy, quinico-equivocal, and what you have now confessed, that too was not nearly true enough or false enough to suit me, you wicked counterfeiter. How could you do otherwise? You would rogue even your disease when you show yourself naked to your doctor, in the same way that you have just now rogued your lie when you said to me, I did all this only as a game. There was seriousness in it too. You are something of an ascetic of the spirit. I solve your riddle. Your magic has enchanted everybody, but no lie or cunning is left to you to use against yourself. You are disenchanted for yourself, and you have harvested nausea as your one truth. Not a word of yours is genuine anymore except your mouth, namely the nausea that sticks to your mouth. Ugh. Who are you? Cried the old magician at this point, his voice defiant. Who may speak thus to me, the greatest man alive today? And a green lightning bolt flashed from his eyes towards Zarathustra, but immediately afterwards he changed, and he said sadly, O Zarathustra, I am weary of it, my art nauseates me. I am not great, and why do I dissemble? But you know it too. I sought greatness, and I wanted to represent a great human being. And I persuaded many, but this lie went beyond my strength. It is breaking me, O Zarathustra. Everything about me is a lie. But that I am breaking, this my breaking is genuine. Well, it does you credit, said Zarathustra gloomily. Looking alongside to the ground, it does you credit that you sought greatness, but it also betrays you. You are not great, you wicked old magician. This is what is best and most honest about you. In this I honor. That you wearied of yourself and said it outright, I am not great. In this I honor you as an ascetic of the spirit. And even if it was only a wink and a twinkling in this one moment, you were genuine. But speak. What are you seeking here in my woods and rocks and lying down on my path? How did you want to try me? In what way were you seeking to test me? Thus spoke Zarathustra, and his eyes flashed. The old magician remained silent for a while, then said, Did I seek to test you? I merely seek, O Zarathustra. I seek one who is genuine, right, simple, unequivocal, a man of all honesty and a vessel of wisdom, a saint of knowledge and a great human being. Do you not know it, Zarathustra? I seek Zarathustra. And at this point there began a long silence between the two, but Zarathustra became deeply absorbed and closed his eyes. Then, however, returning to his partner in the conversation, he seized the hand of the magician and said, full of kindness and cunning, Well, up there goes the path, there lies Zarathustra's cave. There you may seek him who you would find, and ask my animals for advice, my eagle and my serpent. They shall help you seek, but my cave is large. I myself, to be sure, I have yet to see a great human being. For what is great, even in the eyes of the subtlest today, are too coarse. It is the realm of the mob. Many have I seen swollen and straining, and the people cried, "Behold a great man." But what good are all bellows? In the end, the wind comes out, and in the end, a frog which has puffed itself up too long will burst. The wind comes out to stab a swollen man in the belly, and I call that a fine pastime. And hear it well, little boys. Today belongs to the mob. I'm sorry, I just have to take note of this real quick. The mob, and then up here he says, even the eyes of the subtlest today are too coarse. It is the realm of the mob. Who could still know what is great and what is small, and who could still successfully seek greatness? Only a fool. Fools succeed. You seek great human beings, you queer fool. Who taught you that? Is today the time for that? Oh, you wicked seeker. What did you seek to test me? Thus spoke Zarathustra, and his heart comforted, and he continued on his way, laughing. I mean, this motherfucker shot eye lasers at him. That's crazy. His next section is called Retired. Not long, however, after Zarathustra had gotten away from the magician, he saw somebody sitting by his side of the path, a tall man in black with a gaunt, pale face. And this man displeased him exceedingly. Alas, he said to his heart, there sits a muffled up melancholy looking like the tribe of priests. What do they want in my realm? How now? I have scarcely escaped that magician. Must another black artist cross my way so soon? Some wizard with a laying on hands, some dark miracle worker by the grace of God, some anointed world slanderer whom the devil should fetch. But the devil is never where he should be. He always comes out too late. This damned dwarf and clubfoot. I need to make a little note of that too. Thus, that goes right back to the tightrope walker business. Thus cursed Zarathustra, impatient in his heart, and he wondered how he might sneak past the black man, looking the other way. But behold, it happened otherwise, for at the same moment, the seated man had already spotted him, and not unlike the one who unexpected good fortune has been thrust, he jumped up and walked towards Zarathustra. Whoever you may be, you wanderer, he said, help one who has lost his way, a seeker, an old man who might easily come to grief here. This region is remote and strange to me, and I have heard wild animals howling, and he who might have offered me protection no longer exists himself. I sought the last pious man, a saint and a hermit, who, alone in his forest, had not yet heard what all the world knows today. And what does the world know today? Said Zarathustra. Perhaps this, the old God in whom all the world once believed, no longer lives? As you say, repeated the old man sadly, and I served that old God until his last hour. But now I am retired, without a master, and yet not free, nor ever cheerful except in my memories. That is why I climb these mountains, that I might again have a festival at last, as a fitting for an old pope and the church father. For behold, I am the last pope, a festival of pious memories and divine service. But now he himself is dead, and the most pious man and the saint in the forest who constantly praised his God and singing and humming. I did not find him when I found his cave, but there were 2 wolves inside howling over his death, for all animals loved him. So I ran away. Had I then come to these woods and these mountains in vain? Then my heart decided I should seek another man, the most pious of all those who do not believe in God, that I should seek Zarathustra. Thus spoke the old man, and he looked with sharp eyes at the man standing before him. But Zarathustra seized the hand of the old pope and long contemplated it with admiration. "Behold, venerable one," he said then. "What a beautiful long hand. That is the hand of one who has always dispensed blessings. But now it holds him whom you seek, me, Zarathustra. It is I, the godless Zarathustra, who speaks. Who is more godless than I, that I may enjoy his instruction?" Thus spoke Zarathustra, and with his glance he pierced the thoughts and the thoughts behind the thoughts of the old pope. And the last, the pope began, "He who loved and possessed him most had also lost him most now. Behold, I myself am probably the more godless of the two of us. But who could rejoice in that?" "You served him to the last?" Zarathustra asked thoughtfully after a long silence. "You know how he died? Is it true what they say, that pity strangled him? That he saw how man hung on the cross, and that he could not bear it, and the love of man became his hell, and in the end his death?" The old pope, however, did not answer, but looked aside, shy, with a pained and gloomy expression. "Let him go," Zarathustra said after a long reflection, still looking the old man straight in the eye. "Let him go. He is gone, and although it does you credit that you say only good things about him, who is now dead, you know as well as I who he was, and that his ways were queer." Speaking in the confidence of three eyes, the old pope said cheerfully, for he was blind in one eye, "And what pertains to God, I am, and I have the right to be, more enlightened than Zarathustra himself. My love served him many years. My will followed his will in everything. And a good servant, however, knows everything, including even things that his master conceals from himself. He was a concealed god, addicted to secrecy. Verily, even a son that he got himself in a sneaky way. Whoa, hey now. At the door of his faith stands adultery. Whoever praises him as a god of love does not have a high enough opinion of love. Did this God not want to be a judge too? But the lover loves beyond reward and retribution. And when he was young, this God out of the Orient, he was harsh and vengeful. And he built himself a hell to amuse his favorites. Eventually, however, he became old and soft and mellow and pitying, more like a grandfather than a father. But most likely like a shaky old grandmother, when he sat in his nook by his hearth and wilted and grieving over his weak legs, weary of the world, weary of the willing, and one day he choked on his all too great pity. "You old pope," Zarathustra interrupted at this point, "did you see that with your own eyes? Surely it might have happened that way. That way was also in some other ways. When gods die, they always die several kinds of death. But well, then, this way or that, this way and that, he is gone. He offended the taste of my ears and my eyes. I do not want to say anything worse about him now that he is dead. I love all that looks bright and speaks honestly, but he, you know it, you old priest, there was something of your manner about him, of the priest's manner. He was equivocal, and he was indistinct, and how angry he got with us, this wrath snorter, because we understood him badly. But why did he not speak more clearly? And If it was the fault of our ears, why did he give us ears that hurt him badly? If there was mud in our ears, well, who put it there? He bungled too much. God damn it. Nietzsche said it better than me. I always just say he always fucks everything up. That's not surprising. Of course, Nietzsche said it better than I did. This potter, who had never finished his apprenticeship, that he wreaked revenge on his pots and creations for having bungled them himself. That was a sin against good taste. And there is good taste in piety too. And it was this that said in the end, away with such a God, rather no God. Rather make destiny of one's own, rather be a fool, rather be a god oneself. What is this I hear? Said the old pope, at this point pricking up his ears. O Zarathustra, with such disbelief you are more pious than you believe. Some god in you must have converted you to your own godlessness. Is it not your piety itself that no longer lets you believe in God, and your overgreat honesty will yet lead you beyond good and evil too? Behold, that remains to you. You have eyes and hands and mouth predestined for blessing of all eternity. One does not bless with the hand alone. Near you, although you want to be of the most godless, I sense a secret, sacred, pleasant sense of long blessing. It gives me a gladness and a grief. Let me be your guest, O Zarathustra, for one single night. Nowhere on earth shall I now feel better than with you. Amen. So be it, says Zarathustra in a great astonishment. Up there goes the way. There lies Zarathustra's cave. I should indeed like to accompany you there myself, you venerable one, for I love all who are pious, but now a cry of distress urgently calls me away from you. In my realm no one shall come to grief. My cave is a good haven, and I wish that I could put everyone who is sad back on firm land and firm legs. But you could take your melancholy off your shoulders. For that I am too weak, verily. We might wait long before someone awakens your God again, for this old God lives no more. He is thoroughly dead. Thus spoke Zarathustra. The Ugiest Man. And again Zarathustra's feet ran over mountains and through woods, and his eyes kept seeking, but whom they wanted to see was nowhere to be seen. The great distressed one who had cried out all along the way. However, Zarathustra jubilated in his heart and was grateful. What good things, he said, has this day given to me to make up for its bad beginning? What strange people have I found to talk with? Now I shall long chew their words like good grains. My teeth shall grind them and crush them small until they flow like milk into my soul. But then the path turned around a rock again, and scenery changed all at once. Zarathustra entered a realm of death. Black and red cliffs rose rigidly. No grass. No trees, no bird's voice, for it was a valley that all animals avoided, even the beasts of prey, and only a species of ugly fat green snakes came here to die when they grew old. Therefore the shepherds called this place Valley of Snake's Death. Zarathustra, however, sank into a black reminiscence, for he felt as if he had stood in this valley once before. And much that was grave weighed on his mind, and he walked slowly and still more slowly, and finally stood still. But when he opened his eyes, he saw something sitting by the way, shaped like a human being, yet scarcely like a human being. Something inexpressive and all at once profound sense of shame overcome Zarathustra for having laid eyes on such a thing. Blushing right up to his white hair, he averted his eyes and raised his feet to leave the dreadful place. But at that moment, the dead wasteland filled with noise. For something welled up from the ground, gurgling and rattling as water gurgles and rattles by night in clogged water pipes. And at last it became a human voice and human speech. Thus, Zarathustra, Zarathustra, guess my riddle, speak, speak. What is thy revenge against the witness? I lure you back here is slippery ice. Take care that your pride does not break its legs here. You think yourself wise, proud, Zarathustra. Then guess the riddle, you cracker of hard nuts, the riddle that I am. Speak then, who am I? But Zarathustra had heard these words. What do you suppose happened to his soul? Pity seized him, and he sank down all at once like an oak tree that has long resisted many woodcutters, heavily, suddenly terrifying even those who had wanted to fell it. But immediately he rose from the ground again, and his face became hard. I recognize you well, he said in the voice of bronze. You are the murderer of God. Let me go. You could not bear him who saw you. You always saw you through and through, you ugliest man. You took revenge on this witness. Thus spoke Zarathustra, and he wanted to leave, but the inexpressible one seized a corner of his garment and began again to gurgle and seek for words. Stay, he said finally, stay, do not pass. I have guessed what axe struck you to the ground. Hail to you, O Zarathustra, that you stand again. I have guessed, and I know it well, how he who is killed him feels, the murderer of God. Stay, sit down here with me. It is not for nothing. Whom did I want to reach, if not you? Stay, sit down, but do not look at me. In that way, honor my ugliness. They persecute me now. You are my last refuge. Not with their hatred, not with their catchpoles. I would mock such persecution and be proud and glad of it. Has not all success hitherto been with the well persecuted? And whoever persecutes well learns readily how to follow, for he is used to going after someone else. But it is their pity. It is their pity that I flee, fleeing to you, O Zarathustra. Protect me. You, my last refuge, the only one who has solved my riddle. You guessed how he who killed him feels. Stay, and if you would go, you impatient one, do not go the way I came. That way is bad. You are angry with me that I have even now stammered too long, and even advise you. But no, it is I, the ugliest man, who also the largest and heaviest feet. Where have I gone? The way is bad. I tread all the ways till they are dead and ruined. But that you passed me by silent, and that you blushed, I saw it well. That is how I recognized you as Zarathustra. Everyone else would have thrown his alms to me, his pity, with his eyes and words. But for that I am not a beggar enough, as you guessed. For that I am too rich in what is great, in what is terrible, in what is ugliest, and what is the most inexpressible. Your shame, Zarathustra, honored me. With difficulty I escaped the throng of the pitying to find the only one today who teaches pity is obtrusive, you. There's a lot of gems here towards the end, right? Fuck. SJW, W. Whether it be a god's pity or a man's pity offends the sense of shame, and to be unwilling to help can be nobler than virtue which jumps to help. But today that is called virtue itself among all the little people pity. They have no respect for the great misfortune, for great ugliness, for the great failure, and over this multitude I look away as a dog looks away over the backs of the teeming flocks of sheep. They are little gray people full of goodwill and goodwill. Goodwill and goodwill. As heron looks away contemptuously over shallow ponds, its head leaning back. Thus I look away over the teeming mass of gray little waves and wills and souls. Too long have we conceded to them that they are right, these little people, so that in the end we have also conceded them might. Now they teach good is only what little people call good. And today, truth is what the preacher says, who himself came from among them, that queer saint and advocate of the little people who bore witness about himself. I am truth. This immodest fellow has long given the little people swelled heads. He who taught no small error when he taught I am the truth has an immodest fellow ever been answered more politely? You, however, O Zarathustra, passed him by and said no, no, 3 times no. You warned him against his error. You, as the first, warned against pity, not all, not none, but you and your kind. You are ashamed of the shame of the great sufferer, and verily when you say, from pity a great cloud approaches, beware, O men. When you teach all creators are hard, all great love is over and above its pity. O Zarathustra, how well you seem to me to understand storm signs, but you warn yourself also against your pity. For many are on their way to you, many who are suffering, doubting, despairing, drowning, freezing, and I also warn you against myself. You guessed my best and my worst riddle, myself, and what I did. I know the axe that fells you. But he had to die. He saw with his own eyes. He saw with everything. He saw man's depths and ultimate grounds, all his concealed grace and ugliness. His pity knew no shame, and he crawled into my dirtiest nooks, and his most curious, over-obtrusive, over-pitying one had to die. He always saw me on such a witness. I wanted to have revenge or not live. Myself, the God who saw everything, even man, this God had to die. Man cannot bear it, and that such a witness should live. Thus spoke the ugliest man, but Zarathustra rose and was about to leave, for he felt frozen down to his very entrails. You inexpressible one, he said, you have warned me against your way. In thanks I shall praise mine to you. Behold, up there lies Zarathustra's cave. My cave is large and deep and has many nooks. Even the most hidden can find a hiding place there. And close by there are hundreds of dens and lodges for crawling, fluttering, and jumping beasts. You self-exiled exile. You would not live among men and men's pity. Well, then, do as I do. Thus you also learn from me. Only the doer learns and speaks first of all to my animals, the proudest animals, the wisest animal. They should be the right counselors for the two of us. Thus spoke Zarathustra, and he went his way still more reflectively and slowly than before, for he asked himself much, and he did not know how to answer himself readily. How poor man is, after all, he thought in his heart. How ugly, how wheezing, and how full of hidden shame. I have been told that man loves himself. Ah, how great must this self-love be, and how much contempt stands against it. This fellow, too, loved himself, even as he despised himself. The great lover he seems to me, and the great despiser, and none have I found yet who despised himself more deeply. That, too, is a kind of height. Alas, was he perhaps the higher man whose cry I heard? I love the great despisers. Man, however, is something that must be overcome. I don't know if I'm going to have time to do one tomorrow before I break my fast. So if not, thank you guys for helping me pass time by listening to this. If I do one, it's going to be real close to 72 hours. I mean, like 72 and a half hours. So we'll see. We'll see how I'm feeling. But again, thank you guys for letting me pass time here. Listen to some Zarathustra. We're getting close to the end. I'm pretty excited about that. I'm John. This has been the Ambercast.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Send an email or visit us on social media to let us know what you think about this topic. And please remember to leave a 5-star rate and review.